your definitive answer? Oh, thank you. You see, it says right up there, so we remember, right? Okay, do we have any new hams or people here this evening? Yeah, you're, okay, so let's start here. Okay.
My name's Dan Tanner. I'm not currently licensed, but I was at one time.
What was your old call sign? Some of these people never forget call signs.
My first one was N4Q, no, KB4YSO.
Okay.
And then when I upgraded, it was N4QGV, and the people in that club called me the Quick Green Varmint.
There you go. All right. Any other new people or guests here this evening? Yep, right over here.
I'm Joe, W7COM. Joined up a couple months ago. Worked with the agency guys. So.
Well, glad to meet you, Joe, and welcome to our club. We're pretty active.
I live in Portland, but I'm so north. I'm more RF-wise over in Clark County. So.
Well, half the people on 147.24 live in Oregon, so you're in good company. I actually said that sort of right. Anyone could correct me on how I said Oregon? Okay. I'm a transplant, if you can't tell. All right. Any other license upgrades? People that got a new license or new hams or visitors? Right here. Okay.
Josh Herman, KC9CCX, upgraded to general.
All right.
My professional engineer license.
Very cool. And we have your name on a slot for the GOTA station. I'll explain more about that a little later. Okay. What do you got?
And I recently received my certificate for 60 years of ARRL membership.
Very cool. All right, Steve.
Amazing how fast time flies. And I didn't realize that I got my first license back in 65, but I still remember the days vividly.
There you go. And that was an FCC office visit, or did you do a novice exam? Oh, you did both. Okay. What do you got, Tim?
I just got my registration from ARRL as an instructor.
Oh, very good. So he is an official instructor now, right? You're an official instructor. Very cool. All right. All right. Any other visitors, guests, or awards that we need to talk about? Okay. All right. So on to the next. So under the general announcements, there is still time to do Lewis and Clark Trail on the air. Somebody told me it was over 30,000 QSOs. Is that I'm looking over here. 48,000 QSOs now registered for the Lewis and Clark on the air. So that seems to be very successful. We have 2 more days, for 3 more days to go. So if you haven't been on, you want to get on, you want to do that, please do. Field Day, June 27th and 29th. We're going to talk a lot more about that, so I'll leave that. And tomorrow, for those of you who don't get up real early, it's okay, because the digital group is going to meet in Hogginson Park about 9 o'clock, and I have another slide with some more info on that. Next slide. So that's just a very brief overview of Field Day before we get into the nitty-gritty. So it's June 27th. That's Friday. We set up Saturday and Sunday. It's in the SCH green space that's just off of North 112th.
Oh, yeah, I see it now. Yeah.
Okay. We have HF, VHF, UHF, single sideband, CW, and FT8. We'll have some satellite contacts and some computer logging. The GOTA station, and I'll talk more about this during the presentation. We need people to help with setup and tear down. We need people to prepare equipment. I want to put a shout out to Gary, K7BSO. He's been helping me get all the radios married up to all the computers this last couple weeks, and that's been fantastic. And Rick's significant other, Lori, who I don't see here this evening, she's received all the food totes this club runs on their stomach, and so she plays a major role in Field Day. And so she's in the process of getting that all taken care of this year. And please, next slide. I'll show you more about the thing. The digital group, they'll be working with WinLink, Packet Radio, and Vara FM tomorrow. As a group, they're exploring mesh networks. I heard all sorts of people on a call last night talking about metastatic networks. That's a whole new kind of thing that's becoming an epidemic around here. So the digital group will be talking about that as well. So they'll be at Hawkinson's Park at 9 a.m. Tomorrow, and they'll be focusing primarily getting people up on WinLink and making sure they can do regular packet and VARA FM. Okay.
Dave,
Yes, go ahead.
there's one of our presentations in the winter, the fall, winter. I'm not sure which month it'll be, but it'll be primarily about mesh testing.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, they had an ad hoc meeting up on the balcony on Sunday next to our sales table. So I got the firsthand dump from some of the guys down by Salem. So that was very interesting. Next slide. Back one. So right now, Rick is our emergency response coordinator, NE70. For a variety of reasons, we're looking for someone to try to replace him. That's not possible, but we are looking for someone who will step up and fill that role for the club. And let me just briefly say what that role is. It's a position within our club that maintains two very important things: knowledge of all of our equipment that the club owns that would be available to deploy in the event of an emergency. And second of all, as any of you who've actually been in the midst of a real emergency know that we deplete all our trained or people who are registered emergency responders like Aries pretty quickly. And as a consequence, we have all sorts of people who volunteer, and that isn't necessarily constructive sometimes. So what we need is a list of people in the club who would be willing to volunteer under those conditions, but the emergency coordinator acts as our gatekeeper so that those people can be utilized in a constructive way during an emergency. So our emergency response coordinator for the club keeps track of a list of club members who aren't members of Aries, but who would be willing to help out in time of emergency. So please keep that in mind. And so if any of you who have some experience in emergency communications, but aren't necessarily a member of Aries, we would like to have you step forward and talk to us about possibly filling that role. Okay. So next slide. So Steve, you want to talk a little bit about this?
So Tim Pullman found a wonderful website where a husband and wife team do what we call swag. What does that stand for, Dave? It's it's stuff like hats and cups and all that, and hoodies and jackets and all of that. And the wife, her name is Amy. I talked to her, and she's really amazing. And their website has about 10 clubs, ham clubs, with swag that they have used and put their logos and stuff on it. So what I have done is I went through all of those club offerings and captured them in screenshots. And so the idea is that we would take our club logos or graphics or whatever we want, and then make cups order cups or jackets or hats or whatever we want. The cool thing about it is there's no cost to us as a club. Everything you buy it covers, each purchase covers everything. So in other words, our cost is $10 just to get into the whole thing. And then if we select whatever we like from the other clubs and say, that'd be really cool, let's put our logo on that, then we end up having a spot on their website. And you can go in and look at our club and say, well, I want that, that, and that. And she'll do one-off orders. It doesn't have to be in mass. So I think it's a really great service. And they do it for the love of the hobby, for one thing. I don't know how they're making money out of it, but so anyway, it's pretty cool.
So right now, we're still in some setup stages. And so in the weekly bulletin, we'll have a link to the website as soon as we're confident that everything is in place.
So the other thing is, I don't know, the files that I did, the screenshots, has the club name and the price in the file name. I didn't overlay it with graphics. So if you want to know the price, but what we'll end up with what we need is input from you guys as to what you'd like. Because she's got to do the artwork, take our logos and put it on a product. You know what I'm saying? So we're not going to want everything. We're going to want to pick what we think we want specifically.
So we're thinking hats and coffee cups for the beginning. So if any of you as members have specific interest in these items, we're not talking t-shirts or sweatshirts. Laura and Mark have been taking care of us for years on that. We're not changing that at all. But some of the other items that we want to add to it, like the coffee cups, if you have specific interest for items, please let Steve or myself know so we can sort of set some priorities.
And
Okay.
they do have coats and they have license plates. So that's two that might be. And I thought the prices were reasonable.
Yeah, I looked as well. In fact, one of the first, the Allegan Radio Club, which is in Michigan, you might know I'm from there. The radio club at Allegan was almost everybody in the radio club used to work for the FCC because there was a big monitoring station there. Anyway, so they have a bunch of they were one of the first members to actually work with these people for their swag stuff.
So we're in process and we'll be coming up with something.
Okay. Yeah, there is a website, and in the weekly bulletin, once we've got everything sort of settled, we'll send a link to the website. So it's probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe right after the next meeting. We need input from you. What besides hats and coffee mugs? Okay, would you be interested in having us get set up?
And there's the stainless steel the insulated cups, or the tall ones. They have those too. So they have just about a little bit of everything.
Next slide. Okay, so my hat's off to everyone who's been involved in trying to get this rolling again for the club. Mike and Tim and Toby and all the people who've agreed to help with the license classes, and Barbara, and the YL team. That's a whole nother super thing all in of itself. So right now we have a tech class scheduled tentatively for October. It's a Friday, Saturday, the 10th and 11th, another Friday and Saturday. And then the exam session is scheduled for the 18th. The YL class right now is set up for September, Thursday the 25th, Friday the 26th, and the 27th. And then again on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and you have a week off, and then the exam is scheduled for October 18th. And that's YL only class. It's amazing what they're doing with the class. They have people from all over the country who heard about this and who've been signing up and been part of their Zoom classes. So that's a very impressive outreach by our club. That's not just local, but through our entire ham radio community. It's pretty cool. So we do not yet have a site picked out for the in-person classes. We have an offer that we have to firm up, and as soon as we get that firmed up, we will update the website for both of these and get that out there so people know what's going on. Next.
My turn.
Yep.
So for next month, I've already have a few operators that are going to be guinea pigs. It's going to be a stump the board. They don't know that yet. For those of you that haven't read the bulletin, and even those of you that have, when I first started in this club, I was a brand new technician. Ink wasn't dry on my license yet. I came to the first couple of meetings, and the presentations were on things that I had no clue what they were talking about. I didn't know what DXing was. I didn't know what QSOs are. I didn't have any idea what contesting was, propagation. I knew that I had a license and I had a radio, and that was about it. And I was too shy to even ask what's next, how to set up a station. And so I did a lot of research on that, and it was painful. So anyway, I didn't know what I didn't know at that time. What I would like to do and planning on doing, having some experts come up, and if you have questions for them on whatever, I have my general license now. There's things that I don't know as a general that I need to know, that I would like to know. There's all kinds of aspects of radio that you all know about. Everything from CW to digital and everything in between. That don't be shy. Come next month with questions. I'll have some that I can ask, but I'd rather not be the one hogging up the whole time. I'm very mic shy. So have questions next month. This also goes for those that are online. Mike has been putting it into the bulletin each week. I really would like to have this focused on what you don't know and that you don't know who to ask, whether it's antennas, whether it's your first station, whether it's handheld, whether it's digital. There will be people up here that have a variety of knowledge that hopefully can answer the questions you might have. So that's my plug.
Okay, so field day is one of my many passions. If people are laughing already. Let me explain. How many people in this room field day experience launched their ham radio hobby? How many? Look at these hams. Okay. Their field day experience made their whole outlook towards what ham radio was and why they wanted to stick with it. So field day is really important for a lot of reasons, not only to the health of the club, but the ham radio community in general. So, and this year's theme is radio connection. So it's actually pretty appropriate because radio is no longer about just a mic and a CW key. There's a lot going on in radio. Next slide. So for those of you who've been through many field days, we're going to cover what is field day because there's a lot of misconceptions about that. We're going to talk about the various operating positions. There is a place for everyone in this room to operate at field day. Regardless of your skill level, there is a place to be there, operate, and have fun. What skills do you need? We'll cover that a little bit. We'll go over the schedule. We'll talk about the operating schedule and volunteers. You can learn so much helping us put all these antennas together, running the coax and things like that. And we'll talk briefly about what it is that you should take away after the end of field day. So, most importantly, it is to foster the public's understanding of what amateur radio is. How many people in this room have told someone you got your ham radio license and they said, oh, CB? And you promptly smiled and said, well, not quite. So this is really about trying to help people outside of the ham radio community understand a little more about what amateur radio is. Demonstrate emergency preparedness. It is one of the 5 principles for why we're allowed to have a license is to be a resource in times of emergency. Sitting in our home, comfy chair, having our cup of coffee and, rag chewing on the radio is not the same as being out in a rainstorm. We had an exercise this last year where it poured. I think it took Bern 2 days to dry out after he got home. So emergency preparedness doesn't mean being sitting at home operating comfortably. Doing this in the field, now we'll agree that June 28th is a great time of the year to do this, but it's a whole different experience when you're out there doing it in the field. Now, it also gives us a chance to get our served agencies, the people who might rely on amateur radio, out in the field to meet us, talk to us, and see what we do. We'll talk a little bit about that a little later on. Again, allow all amateur operators and other people interested to get in and operate. It is not a contest. Many of you people think I'm a little bit of a contest tonight. It's okay. I'll admit it. I'm not the only one, by the way. Now, look at over there. So at the same time, we're going to measure how we do at field day, because just doing field day with not having some metrics isn't good either. Because how do you know if you're doing good or you're improving? Okay, it's and there are lots of bragging rights that go with this too, but we'll ignore that for a minute. It's a major social time for this club especially. We're going to spend almost $2,000 to help put field day on. You don't pay a dime of that. It's a time for all of us to get together. It's longer than an hour. You sit at the tables, you talk, you trade stories, we have meals together. It's a great social time for you to get to know the other members of the club. And you're going to learn a lot from talking to them. Okay. Some of which you should forget, but most of it is very valuable. We're going to have information booths. Typically, we have somewhere between 100 and 140 people come to field day. So the information booths are a way for people to learn more about the Aries group, learn about the radio club, learn about the YL group. And we have brochures we pass out. We have people we talk to. And we take special attention to those visitors from our governmental units, whether it's the mayor or a county board member or even a DPW manager. Those people who might very well need our services, we give them a special tour. We get to talk to them. We start to build those relations so they know we exist and that they'll utilize it. Next. This is what the ARRL thinks is important. This is how they score us for field day. We run on emergency power. Yep, we do that. We have media, publicity. Yep, we send out flyers. We do things with the newspaper. We set up in a public place. SEH allows us to have visitors there. Fantastic location. We have information booths. We send messages to the ARRL section manager and the section emergency coordinator. Turns out the ARRL is getting in tune. Used to be we could only do the official radiogram. Now we can do both the radiogram and the FEMA ICS 213 form. Yep, and so it's an improvement because if we do ever deploy and we have to send messages, they look at that radiogram and go, "What's that?" But if we tell them it's an ICS 213, all the public safety people are going to know what we're talking about. At least most of them. All right. We're going to get points if we do if we do one satellite QSO, we get 100 points. It's one of the things we're trying to do is make us do a lot of things to try to showcase the breadth of ham radio. One of these days they're going to demonstrate a mesh network. That is going to be another 100 points. It isn't yet, but it will be. It'll be coming soon. We have solar cells. We charge up some batteries. And typically I use the batteries to make the satellite QSOs. So we get our extra 100 points for making alternate power. We usually get visited by elected officials. We've been very fortunate that we've had county board members, the mayor of Vancouver, a variety of other publicly elected officials visiting us. We have people from our served agencies. We always have an educational component to field day. We run seminars Saturday afternoon, so we get points for that. Our GOTA station, which stands for Get on the Air. We have mentors that are actually active at that station, and when new people or visitors come and we try to get them to make a QSO, they encourage them and work them through the basics. The GOTA's thing is we get, regardless of how it works, every QSO that somebody makes on that station, we get 5 points. Okay, so it adds up, and there's no limit. So we can actually make more points by getting new people on the radio having fun than we can us old timers sitting there making hundreds of contacts. So there's an incentive to try to get people involved, and we get social media posts. So we do things on Facebook, and it used to be Twitter. I don't know what it's called now, X, I think. But we do have someone in the club who's leading up some of our social media. Next slide. So that's what's important for them. A variety and total number of contact modes. We do CW and digital, count 2 points apiece. So if you think CW is obsolete, no, it isn't. It is a very solid means of getting QSOs through. If we run various power levels, they realize that puts you at a disadvantage. People who run QRP have my admiration. I do not know. There's one guy on our DX club, and he makes 300 QSOs running QRP. You know, it's just a phenomenal set of patience and skills to do that. We run 100 watts. We don't have all that many people that have that much patience. So, none of us are bringing our kilowatt amplifiers out there, so we don't do that. But we run basically 100-watt stations.
Dave,
Yes, go ahead.
could you explain what QRP is for those of us that don't know?
Yes. QRP is one of those amateur radio abbreviations that means low to very microwatt power. Anything under 5 watts is called QRP. Okay, and Al, what's it called when you run full QRO, when you run the full amp? What's it called when you're running the full legal limit? QRO? QRO. So the opposite end of QRP is QRO. Okay. Now, we want to get new people on the air. So I can't emphasize that enough. Let's talk about the codes that are associated with field day. Every station that operates on field day has a class. If I'm operating at home and I'm hooked into the power, I'm a Delta class. If I'm running emergency power, I got a generator or solar cells and I'm running from home, I'm an E class. If I'm 2 of my buddies and we headed out into the woods because we don't want to be part of no social club and we just want to operate, we're going to be a B class. Clubs like us, which are the majority of the people that operate in field day, are going to be the A class. So you have all these different classes. There's actually people who activate their emergency operation centers, and those people are F classes. I've often thought they chose that letter rather. Yeah. Anyway, so you have all these different classes, and the field day exchange, the number in the front tells how many transmitters you're operating. It's a little more complicated than that because we actually are operating 6 transmitters at field day, but our class is 4. So we're 4 alpha, and then we have to tell everybody where we are. So we're in Western Washington is our actual class. So our exchange, 4 alpha, whiskey alpha. All of you can memorize that in a matter of a couple of minutes. Anyway, next slide. So the big thing about field day for me is the social success of field day has more to do with having all of these people working together. The committee meeting the other night on Zoom, I think, had 21 individuals on there. So even though I might be the force kicking butts to get things moving, there's a whole lot of other people in this club who are all helping make this event happen. So we're planning, we're conducting and executing all those tasks to put on a field day. Those are the same people who would have to step up to help in an emergency. So it's important. And we want to enjoy the fellowship, talk to guests. Everyone who participates should have a positive experience. That doesn't mean you can't be nitpicking. The first one that tells me I didn't get the right kind of cookies for you to eat at midnight, that isn't going to work. However, I want you all to have a very positive experience. You want to learn and experience new things. If you've never operated FT8 before, sit down with someone who is. Watch what they do. Learn how to do it. It is not trivial, you know. There's a lot of moving pieces to make FT8 work. Even if you CW, sitting down and watching Al operate CW, you're going to learn a lot about CW operations. Or Phil. Although Phil, if he brings a straight key, I even have the wires all set so you can plug in and this. We expect, yeah, okay. We expect everyone who's working at field day is going to make a few mistakes. We are a safety net. You're going to screw up. You're going to screw up the logging. You're going to missign a call. You may be even going to screw up the radio. I have little SD cards plugged into radios. I can hit reload everything. So even if you screw it up, we can fix it. So this is a mistake worry-free zone. We expect you to make some. Please, it's okay. Wendy and I used to coach robot teams, and I have a whole speech that goes about fail early, fail often, because things just don't always work the first time. And if you do it 2 or 3 times, you're eventually going to get it right. So please understand that even if you have anxiety about doing something wrong, let it go. Come to field day. Let's have a great time and get that out of your system so we can do things. We're going to push you out of your comfort zone. Okay. Well, some people are going to make their own push. I'm going to pick on Marilyn for a minute. What's the QSO goal going to be for this year, Marilyn? All right, 200. A couple of years ago, she was so bent on getting 100 that she had the report up on every station at field day so she could keep track of how close she was getting there. And that's fantastic. Every one of you should have some personal goals when you come to field day. Even if the goal is to make 1 contact, that is reasonable. And we're going to have a good time doing that. So don't be surprised if I grab you and put you up to a microphone and say, do this. I'm not doing it to be mean. I'm doing it to help you overcome some of that. And so you have a good time. Next slide. Skills and needed. Enthusiasm is number 1. We need lots of manual labor. All those towers don't get bolted together and antennas connected and the coaxes run. That doesn't all happen by magic. People do that. Some of us are getting to the age that when we're all done on Friday, I go home and collapse for several hours. So the more hands we have to do that, I have made a real effort this year to delegate more. I have people doing more stuff. I still end up being the weak link of the whole thing because everybody's asking me questions and I can only be at one place at a time. So we're trying to delegate more of that. We even have instructions on how to put up the kitchen tent. Yeah. They're printed out. Now, you want to take a bet somebody doesn't look at them before they start putting it up. But they are there. They are there and printed out. Practice your phonetics. Every time you're on the radio, here you're going to use phonetics. So practice Whiskey 7 Alpha, India Alpha, 4 Alpha, Whiskey, Whiskey Alpha. So practice that so you can do it without even thinking. Now, you have to be able to listen well. That comes with practice. 2-finger typers. If you're afraid of logging on the computer, don't be. There's only a half a dozen people in this club that can make QSOs faster than you can type them in with 2 fingers. So even if you don't have typing skills, doesn't mean you can't help log. Most of the computer skills needed, you need to be able to click on the right spot and type something in. It is not rocket science. If you screw it up really bad, Dave or Jason or Gary or Tim or someone else can come and help you get it straightened out. Not a problem. Okay. You got to tune the dial. Everybody know how to tune the dial on the radio, right? And if you do CW, your QSOs count double. If you do FT8, they count double. So it's a real asset to have some of those more traditional skills for field day. Next slide. Yes. FT8 is a digital mode that was invented by a gentleman named Joe Taylor. He's a Nobel Prize winner, and he developed a lot of communication stuff that's used to talk to satellites that are out orbiting in the universe. Reasonable. And the protocol is amazing. So for example, you can turn on your radio and you can listen and not hear a single signal on the 20-meter band. And you can go to the FT8 frequency and all you can hear is just some static, and it will decode signals out of the noise. So a typical FT8 QSO is very brief. There's not a lot of rag chewing going on, but it'll exchange your grid square and your signal strength and your location. And you can make QSOs using this technology that you would never be able to use before. They're using it a lot on moon bounce too. So it sends basically 20 characters in 15 seconds. So it's not going to break in. What? Oh, minus 24 dB. And you won't be able to hear the signal, but that computer and the audio card can sort through it and actually make a QSO or two. It's for yeah, but for some of our old time folks, just like when they came out with single sideband was going to wreck amateur radio. We're hearing some of the old timers saying FT8's wrecking amateur radio. But for those of us who get tired of listening to nothing on the radio, at least this way we're on the radio making QSOs and having a fun time. So it's you got some air. Okay, on our website, we have sign-up sheets, radio manuals, so you can read all about our radios before you go. We have brand new FT-DX10s. They were a phenomenal radio. You can read about those on the website ahead of time. We have the site layout, some operating hints, and we have links to the ARRL if you want to learn more info from them. So this is what our website looks like. You can see the various links. So the sign up sheets are right here. You can actually click on that and go sign them up. They're a Google Doc. You can take a look at some of the operator notes. The manual for the radios are right here. Some minor tutorials about the logging, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Further down the page is a link to the ARRL, so you can go and look at all that. So this is on our website. You're more than welcome to click and sign up. Go next slide. This is what the sign-up sheets looked like the other day when I took a snapshot of them. You can see the various operators. It doesn't really matter if you're doing CW, sideband, or FT8, but it's sort of nice to know. And these are the people signing up for slots. You know, sign up for a couple hours at a time. Make sure there's room for other people to sign up, and you're always welcome. Now, let me say something about if you show up at field day and the chair is empty. Check with our coordinator, which is Rick Smith or myself. We'll have some updates on the site so you can see who's actually supposed to be in that slot. But if the slot is empty, you're more than welcome to sit down and start operating. Next slide. This is what our field day site looks like. This is actually to scale. I've spent some time out there measuring. So, and these are all the trees are sort of in the right spot. So here is our 20-meter operating station. We have 40 meters, and these are dedicated for the whole 24 hours. 15 meters is also dedicated for the 24 hours. And the 10 and 80, 10 during the day and 80 towards the evening. And the red lines you see there is our power distribution system. The go-to station is where we're interested in getting all those new people, new hams. Even if you're an older ham, let's say you're a technician class license, you've never operated HF, but you've been in ham for 10 years. The go-to station is where you should sit down and learn how to operate. And we'll have mentors there to help you. And then this is where we do the VHF and satellite and stuff this year. So we have a couple other experienced satellite operators who are going to help me with that this year. So I'm really looking forward to not being glued to that chair trying to make our satellite QSOs. Next slide. This is what the blown up to full scale looks like. So this is our 20-meter crank up trailer. This is another 30-foot crank up that's got the tri-bander on it. We have a 40-meter vertical and a 20-meter vertical that go to the go-to station. We have a VHF tower that's 30 feet. It has weak signal stuff. It has 22-element 70-centimeter beam, an 11-element 2-meter beam, a 4-element 6-meter beam, and it has a vertical on the top for the packet station, the VARA, and the talk-in. So this is what the overall thing looks like. It's roughly 200 feet by 300 feet. This green line is the 80-meter dipole, and the red line is the 40-meter dipole. The street is just beyond the dipoles there. It's on the right edge. Yep. Actually, I cut it off. The map I have drawn, I actually have the fence on it. The next slide. This gives you an idea what it looks like. You can see the fence there. These are all the trees. And the little turnaround, and so you can, this is the two trees. We use a air cannon to blow the line over the trees and then pull the line up. So those trees are both in the neighborhood of about 100 feet tall. This dipole sags quite a bit in between, but that's, you know, even if you've got a real nice dipole at home, having a dipole at 100 feet does change the parameters quite a bit. All right, next slide. So by the numbers, we have 6 operating positions, radios, 11 different antennas, almost 2,000 feet of coax. When I added it all up, that was pretty scary. We have 400 foot of power cord, 20 sheets of plywood that we put down so the chairs don't sink into the ground. We go through approximately 12 gallons of fuel, which is pretty amazing. We run a 2,000 watt generator. It supplies everything at field day except the griddles on Sunday morning. And we do so with an extended fuel tank that holds about 6 gallons. That generator, once we start it, never turns off. And it's a Honda, and most of the time, the only reason you can tell it's running is when the coffee pot goes and the coffee pot heats up, it speeds up a little bit, and then it slows down when the coffee pot goes off. We have 6 computers. The club owns 5 of those. One of the computers that we use for the satellite passes is mine because it's got the satellite tracking program. We put up a wireless network just for field day. All the computers are networked together by wireless. So, and we'll talk a little bit about the logging program. We have 12 different shelters we set up between the so-called monkey huts and the others. 70 chairs, 30 tables, 2 bathrooms, 1 wash station. Did I mention a kitchen? Yeah, this club needs a kitchen. Supplies. I roughed in. One of the things we have to do a lot of field day is pound in steaks. Every monkey hut's got 8 steaks. Every tower's got steaks. I added them all up, and there's roughly 80 steaks that have to get pounded in at field day. So bring your muscles and your sledgehammers with you because it does take a bit. And the soil out there is rocky. It used to be a truck parking yard, and so it's got roughly 14 to 16 inches of gravel under the entire thing. So pounding a stake in is not trivial, except under the trees. Under the trees, they pound in pretty easy unless you hit a root. Oh, did I do that last year? Yes. Took me 20 minutes to get the stake out of the root. So I'm not doing that again. You know, sometimes I get carried away. I paid for that one. Next slide. So this is what some of the typical operator positions look like. This is so much neater than a couple years ago. A couple years ago, this table used to have like 5 items on it between all the little gadgets for the RIDI and the power supply and the RS-232 converters. Now you can see we have the computer, the radio, the power supply, and that's about it. It's a lot simpler to put together. Notice even though we use the computers, what's on next to every radio? Pad of paper and a pen. So you can use those to do things. We have all sorts of operating aids at every table. You can see them laying there. One is the band plan, because we try not to get FCC citations. We have the abbreviations. I'll talk a little bit more about the abbreviations for all the different sections and states. Okay, next slide. This is our antennas. This is our 4-element 20-meter beam and the crank-up tower that we put up. This is the VHF stack I was just talking about. This is the tri-band beam. And you can see here's the 20-meter vertical. Over here is the satellite antennas. We have azimuth elevation satellite antennas. Next slide. So all the HF and GOTA stations have computer logging and 1mm. They're all networked together. They're very flexible. They allow us to do, if any one of these computers goes down, it's not a problem because the others are keeping track of all the contacts made in every log. When you get the other computer, if it went down, you get it recycled, you bring it up, you can synchronize it, and it'll collect all the cues, those that it didn't need. So basically at field day, we have 5 complete copies of the log on every one of the computers. At the end of field day, there's some discrepancies. I sit and sort through them. But last year we made 2,000 QSOs, and I think the discrepancies were 12 to 15 contacts. So it was relatively easy to sort through. It allows us to see how everybody's doing. And in some cases, people keep track of their QSOs so they know whether or not they're making their goals. It's very robust and very fault tolerant. We have new Yaesu FT10 DXs. I have to tell you, these radios have software-defined front ends. We were able to operate on 2 different parts of the 20-meter sideband last year Now, mind you, one was vertical, the other was horizontal, but we had two stations operating on the same band and they didn't interfere with each other. That is pretty amazing. Anyone who's ever done a multi-operation knows that interstation interference is the nightmare. And so between the bandpass filters and the radio's capability, it was pretty amazing that we could operate the GOTA station and the 20-meter run station on this at the same time without interfering. It's the first time that someone hasn't complained about somebody interfering with somebody else. So that was very appreciative. Each of the FTX 10s have built-in CW decoders. So even if you're feeling a little marginal with your CW, you can actually pull the decoder up and it'll decode the CW. Now, I have to tell you, it still doesn't come anywhere near to the amazing capability of the human mind. But it does work, and it does work pretty well. Each of the radios have built-in sound cards. So the computer communication so that it will work, the FT8 is all built in. It's so we don't have to have external interfaces. For those of us who get into contesting, sitting and calling CQ for hours on end, our voices die, there's lots of issues. These radios have built-in memories. Each of them has a recorded message that calls CQ for field day. It has recorded CW messages, and the N1MN program that we use will actually do all the exchange stuff you need to do CW. So in other words, to call CQ on CW, you put it in the right mode, you hit F1. CQ, field day, W7AIA. Hit the button, CQ, field day. All right, so you can actually sit and call CQ without worrying about killing it. Every radio is equipped with headphones, a microphone on the headphones, and a foot pedal. So if you want to try doing that for the first time, you can. We have standard microphones you can plug in and hit the push to talk, no issues. So you can operate in a way that's comfortable to you. Next slide. This is what the basic situation looks like. There's a bandpass filter. The computer, it's connected to the wireless network. You hook to the radio, the microphone connects there. The computer has N1MM, the logging program. It has the FT8 program on it. The computer will also do the CW, or you can use the radio to do the CW. It'll actually do both. You got all sorts of the built-in sound cards and the voice memory keyer, so you can call CQ either on voice or CW. Next slide. The VHF, UHF operating position. The club now owns a TS2000. We had one donated to the club, and I spent a couple of weeks this year getting it all cleaned up. We have a computer there that provides two functions. It will do the logging for the VHF, UHF, and it'll do the tracking for the satellite. So we have sideband and CW capabilities on 6 meters, 2 meters, 70 centimeters. And we have the ability to do the satellite. The computer actually adjusts the frequencies of the radio to adjust for Doppler. We have an azimuth elevation rotor for an 8 elements on 2 meters and 11 elements on 70 centimeters. That way we can work either the linear transponders or we can work the FM satellites. I also bring a Go kit to the field day along with the Aries team. And so we can actually do packet radio messages, and we do talk in with the station for there as well. Okay. So let's start with the N1MM, and we'll talk about the overview. Now, everybody in this room wants to be a good citizen, right? So, and for those of you who know what you're doing, you rearrange all of these screens that are on N1MM. When you leave, what are you going to do? You're going to put them all back the way they were, please. I would say half of the tech support calls that I end up having to do at field day are because someone closed a window, removed a window, opened another window, covered up a window. And even though I'm pretty familiar with N1MM, there were one time last year, it took me about 20 minutes to figure out how to fix whatever someone did. So please, if you do this. This window is called the log window, and it'll show not only the Q cells you're making, but it'll show the Q cells that everybody else is making as well, because, oh, they're all tied together, right? This is your main logging window. You type the call sign in here. and then you hit the space bar. If somebody else has worked that station, it'll auto-populate the class and the section for you. Otherwise, you'll have to type in the class and the section. And when you're all done, you just hit the return key and it logs it. Notice I've got it set up for CW. This controls the CW speed that this sends. If I want to call CQ, I hit this. If I want to send his call sign, I hit this one right here. And so you can actually go through and you can do the entire CW thing and never touch a key. Okay. You can even ask again if you didn't get their class and section, and you can take a look at that. This is what's called a partial check window. I'll talk about this in a minute. This gives us an overview of how everybody's doing. You can see this was pretty late in the thing. We're at roughly 1,800 QSOs at this point in time where the snapshot was taken. This down here, this window needs to stay up. You should absolutely ignore it. This is a networking window, so if the computers lose communication and whatnot, we'll see messages here. And so there's some actions that you just holler and one of our tech support people will come by and get that settled for you. You can see here that Stan was operating on the 20-meter CW at this time. And so you can see his call sign, who was the op, what frequency the radio was on, and gives us an idea of what was going on at that point in time. Next slide. So, for example, I type in the guy's call sign and the class and the section. And at this point in time, if everything looks good, I got everything there. Notice there's a question mark there. What that means is that that call sign wasn't in the database of the partial check. Partial check has probably close to 25,000 call signs in it, but there's what? 500,000 call signs worldwide. So what happens is this, if you do any contest at all, this call sign will come up with a check mark. This check mark means that Michigan was a valid abbreviation, MI, for the section. If you put MX instead of MI, it wouldn't have the question mark. It'd have the question mark, and there'd be some issues. Also, the first thing you should do when you sit down is hit Control-O and type in the call sign of the people operating. So I've got Wendy and myself typed in here, hit OK, and that means that all the QSOs that I make now at this station will be credited to me. We have some clever people who were going around just hitting Control-O when no one was at the radio, and the next thing you know, some guy did 100 QSOs and they gave credit to whoever would clever enough to type in the Control-O. So we do have clever people in this club. So what's the first thing you do when you sit down at the computer? You type Control-O and you put in your call sign. I was able to fix some of that last year. We had some people who legitimately made, there were issues with the FT8 especially, weren't getting credited to the right people. So you can click any of these to switch the band. If I want to go to CW or to phone, I click here. I want to go back to CW, I click here. Let's say you got all screwed up here and you want to start over. You just hit Alt-W and that wipes it out. It's easy to remember. And if the class or the section isn't correct, it won't let you enter it. You can hit that enter key and it complains. It gives you error messages. If you continue to click yes, regardless, it will log it. And then I'll have to, last year there were probably about 25 QSOs where the section wasn't right. Just because the people persist. Next slide. So this is what this partial check window does. Notice I used Al's call sign here because Al does a lot of contests, so he's in that database. So when I type in his call sign, it goes check, I know that call sign, and these are all the different call signs that were in that database. So you can see Al's was right up here, it said it was, click, and even more importantly, when I typed in WWA, it said that was good too, and it gave me the little check mark. Now, Al was operating at home at this point in time, but so there's a lot of visual clues when you use an N1MM, so they help you keep from screwing up. So this partial check window is really nice to have, and it helps you from making mistakes. The problem with field day is that there's a lot of call signs being used for field day that aren't being used in other contests, so they're not necessarily in the partial check file. For some of us, having that file, or that and the updated country file is really nice. Because I was originally licensed in Michigan. So when you put in WZ8T, the autofill, like for worldwide contests, is going to give you my zone for Michigan, and it's going to put in MI. But I do so much contesting, I'm in the country file. So if you type in WZ18 now, it'll give you my zone for out here, and it'll give you the correct section for me. So it'll actually fill it in correctly. So it pays to update that country file, even for a casual operator. Next slide. We're going to make mistakes. There are lots of ways to fix mistakes. You go over here and I can double click on this, and let's say the call sign was really supposed to be Kilo 8 Delta X-Ray Victor. So I double click on this, I can type right in there. When I'm all done, I hit enter and it's fixed. Most likely, maybe it wasn't 2A, it was 4A. You click there. You can click anything on this line and you can double click that field, open it up, type it, and fix it. Now, you can't go messing with Tim's because you didn't make that QSO. That was Tim on another station. So it's smart enough to know that it'll only let you edit the ones that you make. Okay. Now, let's say you screwed up so bad you can't just edit one thing. If you highlight this row and right click, you get this real nice window up. And in this window, you can fix everything. You could, fix all different aspects. You can change who operated. So you can actually edit it and fix that. And when you're all done fixing this all up the way you want, if we're doing FT8, a lot of times they weren't including their grid square or their field day exchange. And so you may have to type that in by hand and then hit update. Okay. Similarly, let's say that something was just so screwed up and you didn't know what to do. Highlight the line, hit Control N, and you can type me a note saying what it is you think you needed to fix. Okay. So those are the three things about how to edit. They all start by highlighting the line that you want to fix. Either double click the field or right click or do Control N to make the notes. Next slide. Again, lots of information. Dupe. That's pretty obvious. We've worked him already on that band. Okay. Now, let's say that I type somebody else in, like W7SP, and I've already worked that on another station. The minute I hit the space bar, N1MM will take that information from the previous QSO, and it will put in the class and the section, so I don't even have to type it in. It's pretty nice. And at that point in time, as soon as I'm done with the exchange, I can hit enter and it'll go in. Not only that, it'll show me down here in this window, I worked him on 80 meters CW, I worked him on 80 meter voice, I worked him on 40 meters voice, and now I'm working him on 20. So it's pretty cool what it'll do for you. Okay, so down in the log window that's normally up here, you can see who worked in before and what the exchange was. Now, every now and then, people change their exchange during field day. Let's say they started out doing 2 alpha, and Johnny Feelgood shows up with another radio and gets on the air. Now they're 3 alpha. So sometimes you got to pay attention, and it may change. It should never go down, but it should go up depending on the class. Also, next slide. So let's talk about how you get into FT8, because it is not trivial. The radios are all set up to do this. And instead of clicking digital mode or whatever here, you can leave it on either CW or phone. You click this window right here, you open up, and it says load WSJT, and you click on that. And then you wait, because it takes a while to get up to speed. Go ahead. So we have operating aids. We have a list of all the section abbreviations at every station. We have the band plans. We even have little cheater sheets that you can read for Alpha, Whiskey Alpha, or the call sign. And for people at the GOTA station, Rick, I haven't asked you officially yet, but I'm hoping, did he take off? Yep, might have. We have another contest club call, November 7 Hotel Romeo, that we use, and Rick is the trustee for that. You use, even though it's the GOTA station, you use the same exchange of everybody else on field day. So you use the 4 Alpha Whiskey Whiskey Alpha to do that. But the call sign is November 7 Hotel Romeo. So always use phonetics. It really helps. Next slide. Here's an example of the abbreviations. Now, I have to warn you, the ARRL and the Canadian Relay League have been screwing with some of the names of the Canadian sections. First, they split Ontario into 3 sections. I don't know what they have against Ontario West, but there's an Ontario East, North, and South, but no West. They changed some of the other abbreviations. The big one is the Northwest Territories used to be NT. Now it's TER. Last year on field day, it was a real problem because the cheater sheet showed the NT, but the N1MM would only take TER. So if you happen to work them, it was a bit of a problem. So these are all the official abbreviations, but keep in mind, if you don't know what they are, try typing a couple different versions of it, and that partial check sheet will show you which ones that could be valid. Next slide. So let's reiterate. The GOTA station. It is for visitors, people that don't have licenses. We have mentors there. We get them to sit down at the station and try to make a QSO. You know, maybe they'll talk to New York, or they might talk to Pennsylvania, but they'll make a QSO. And it's amazing how making that one QSO can alter their attitude and what they want to do. Also, experienced amateurs. We have amateurs in the club that have had their tech license for 20 years and never operated HF. They're allowed to get on the GOTA station, and let's get them on the operator. All amateurs, regardless of your experience, are allowed to get on the GOTA station. Okay. We will have a number of people wandering around. We'll have some assigned mentors, but we'll also have people who can help you. Again, we expect mistakes. We expect you to have some anxiety. Let's get over it together. Next slide. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the radios. These radios are really, really easy to use. I'm just amazed at how easy they are to use. We're going to talk a little bit about the SWR and the signal strength. Talk a little about, they all have built-in tuners, how to change bands. If you need to change a band at field day, you need to get one of our mentors, because we have the band pass filters that have to mechanically get changed out. So if you're going to change bands like at the GOTA station to go from 20 to 40, you're going to need one of us to walk you through that. It takes us less than a couple minutes, but we need to do that. Changing from CW to phone is really easy. You can just click on the N1MM display and go. We already covered what it takes to get started on N1MM. How to end FT8, I'm going to have a slide totally dedicated to that. Gary, who was helping me get all the radios set together, got impatient. He kept closing windows without waiting, and we had to reset one of the FT8s because of that. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the filters on the radio and the frequency. Okay, next slide. Almost all the controls on this radio require 2 steps. You touch the screen, and then you touch the screen again to make a selection, or you touch a button and then you make a selection. So the buttons are very active on the radio. It's really easy to do. Next slide. So this is the main screen, and it's a touch screen. So if anybody ever sees this, quit transmitting, get one of us over to help, okay? And so that means that we have high SWR. The radios, to protect themselves, turn the power way down so you can't hurt them. So they're pretty good about that. And you might get a high SWR for a variety of reasons that are pretty legitimate. We had a funky cable last year on the 20-meter station. It worked great, We got the antenna up. We checked it. It wasn't any good. We took the antenna down. We checked it. It was good. We put the antenna back up. It was good. And then about an hour before the end of field day, it went flaky again. Turned out that one of the connectors on one of the pieces of coaxes could be twisted right off. So if you ever see that, there's a reason. Let's figure it out. Let's get it fixed. To change from power to SWR, all I have to do is touch that with my finger, and a screen is going to come up and has all my choices: power, SWR, such and such. We try to leave them on SWR almost all the time, because that is your best indicator that things are working well. But if you need to check the power, you just hit that, select power. This is the attenuator. Funny story. Last year, someone came up and said, I can't hear anything on this radio. It's 40 meters. I don't hear anything. I don't hear anything. Well, someone had touched this and set the 18 dB of attenuator in line with the radio. Well, that makes sense. I'm not going to hear much either with 18 dB of attenuation in there. So you can accidentally touch these screens, and if you do, most of the time we leave the amp on the IPO on amp 1, especially when we have two radios operating on the same band. The roofing filter, this came up lots of times because when you switch to digital mode on the radios through N1MM, unless you reset it, it switches down to 500 hertz filter. Well, on N1MN or on FT8, you want to have 3 kilohertz bandwidth. So you don't hear much when it's set to 500. So that was the other thing that we had to do. And the other thing is it turns out that you can't send CW unless you have the break-in turned on. So when you're using the N1MM to send CW, that's another little gotcha. Next slide. So this is the main push buttons that you can do. This is the band knob. You have 2 VFOs. You can work from memory or find step. About the only thing you ever do is hit the mode button and change the mode from CW to SSB. It took me about 5 minutes the other day to figure out why I couldn't tune the radio knob. Evidently, when we were getting it out of the box, I accidentally hit the lock button. So it took me a while to figure that out. And these are the noise blanker and the digital noise reduction that you might put in and so on. Next slide. So this is the example. I touch this with my finger. This pops up in the main screen. I hit SWR, and then it switches the mode of that. If I'm working the FT8 and I'm worried I'm not sending any power out, I touch the screen again. I hit PO, and I can take a look at that. So this way you can take a look at that. If you want to make sure you got power going to the final stage, you can look at the current there. So you can touch the screen. If I touch the screen up here, I'll show you in the next slide, you can actually change the mode. If the SWR is high, please. We've set the compression on all these radios. Please don't mess with it. We had a case where the compression was set so high that it was messing up the FT8, one of the things last year. Next slide. So this gives you the tune button. A single touch of the tune will turn on the automatic tuner that's in the radio. Touching and holding it will cause the radio to go through a tuning cycle. And the radios have in the neighborhood of several thousand memories that they can remember. So for example, on the 80 meter band, I will have gone through and set up about every 50 kilohertz a memory for the tuner. So it should be fine. But occasionally you might get it if you're in some other part of the band where I hadn't set it up, you might see a high SWR and we might need to go through a tune cycle. All the radios should have the tuner on. You'll see that on the screen. And by watching the SWR, you'll realize whether or not you need to do something there. Next slide. So changing the mode, just touch that. This is all your possible different choices. Okay, if it should go to data U when you go to FT8 mode. If it doesn't, come and get me. We'll try to figure out what got messed up in the radio. Next slide. So this gives you showing how you actually load the FT8. So here's my basic window. I got my partial checkup. I click window. I come down. I click load WSJT, and then I sit, and I'm patient. Next slide. So then I'll get my waterfall window. I'll get my normal logging window. And all the radios, there's an advanced setting under file, and one of the settings will be set for field day. So we'll send our field day exchange as part of the FT8. One of the problems we had last year, a lot of the people who were operating FT8 didn't have their field day exchange turned on. So it made it a little tough to complete some of the QSOs. The way this works is really clever. So every time you make an FT8 QSO, it magically sends a little internal message to the computer to a special computer port using something called UDP. It's a kind of data packet for communications on networks. And what happens is N1MM is sitting and listening to anything that gets sent to that special port. And in that packet that gets sent is all the data for your FT8 QSO. So instead of having to enter it all again, N1MM is so clever, it sees that packet, logs all of the data from the FT8 automatically into N1M, so you don't have to put it in twice, just the once. Pretty clever, actually, when you think about it. So now you're operating, you make a bunch of FT8 contacts, and now it's time to go back to phone or CW. What you do is just click that window and close it. Patience. You keep it and you wait. You don't do anything until this little box goes away. Once this little box goes away, you're back to the normal mode, okay? But it takes 20 or so seconds. Patience, please. So, next slide. This gives you an idea of all the different menus that come up. To get this, all I have to do is hit the function button, and it gives me all the different choices that I have here. And once I make one of these choices, this button will then control the level. So for example, if I'm using the CW feature in the radio, and I want to be able to easily alter the CW speed, I hit this button, I click here, and then this is going to tell me, it's going to have up here a little guide so I remember that says it's CW speed. And so that way, if I want to change the CW speed that the radio is sending or receiving, I can just twist that knob and modify it as such. Okay, and we have the little gadgets on the radio, so you don't even have to go into the message stuff. We have these little touch pads, and they have 1 through 5 on them. And if you want to send CQ, you hit the button 1. You want to send your exchange, you hit the button 2. You want to send thank you, you hit button 3. Next slide. This shows you the same thing. You touch the band key, you can hit the button, and it will change the band just like we did before. Last slide. This shows you the CW decoder. Again, you heard me earlier. This radio will do a pretty decent job of decoding CW for you. So you can actually operate CW even if you can barely copy it. It's sensitive. You have to match the speed, and you have to have a pretty clear signal. So if you're in a really crowded band and there's 5 CW signals, and your human ear can pick out which is which, but if it's not good and clear, the radio won't decode it. Just so you know, there's limitations. Now, hopefully everybody at Field Day is using N1MM, so they're sending perfect code. But if you got somebody who's going da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da, really got a lot of swing to their code, or their spacing varies, this is not going to decode that. No way. But again, if they're using N1MN or they're using the built-in CW generator in the radio, it'll decode just peachy. Next slide. To change, if you use an N1MN to send the CW, you can change the speed right here with your mouse. Just click up and down, and you can do everything with just clicking the buttons right here. These are the messages that are being sent. There's no cut numbers. Speaking of one of the things that Brian would probably ask, what's a cut number? Nobody here really wants to know, but it's just a shorthand abbreviation. So you, like if you want to send 0, da, 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 da. Okay, that gets pretty old pretty quick. And so they can send a single letter, like 1 is the letter A. So they have, to make it faster on CW, the pros use cuts. You shouldn't, hopefully, hearing any of that during Field Day, because there's nothing about the exchange that's sent except for the number that would require a cut. So keep in mind the check marks. See how there's a question mark here? My brother-in-law doesn't get on into many contests, so he wasn't in the database. But he's on the radio all the time. He's one of those cherry pickers. He just works the new ones and forgets everybody else. So all the pre-assigned messages are here. You can see what's actually coded in them. Some of you really clever people last year changed some of this on me. I wasn't appreciating your knowledge Because the next guy that operated CW couldn't understand how come this kept looping and looping and looping and wouldn't stop. Because there's a special character you can put in there that'll make it loop on CQ. So I ended up taking a moment to figure that out. Anyway, keep in mind, you have knowledge, use it, put it back when you're done, okay? Be a good citizen. Next slide. The keys are set up. I have a loose cable in every kit that you can hook up either to a straight key or a keyer. There's a bunch of menu settings you need to set. If you're going to use a key or a paddle during field day, please contact me ahead of time so I can give you a little one-on-one tutorial about how to do that. Some of you are just more comfortable doing that. I understand that. But if you choose to use a key or whatnot, let me know and we'll make sure we can accommodate you. Slide. This radio has all sorts of features. You have noise blankers, you have digital noise blankers, you have band filters. You can do all sorts of fancy stuff with this. I just want to make an emphasis. It was 2 years ago. I walked, someone said they couldn't hear anything on the radio, and I walked up to it and realized that someone had set on voice, had set the this roofing filter down to 500 hertz. So they weren't hearing many voices through that. And another occasion they had adjusted, next slide please. They had adjusted one of these IF shift filters to the point that it was completely shifted out of what someone would hear. Okay. So again, back to my speech about feel free to use these. They're really cool. They're very powerful. Put them back when you're done. Next slide. You contour filters. I find I use these more than a lot of others because this big station moves in next to you and they're just hammering you. So what you can do is using the contour filters, you can get rid of either that real low or that real high rumble from that loud station that's interfering with you. So these are pretty useful. You can turn them on and off and adjust them with the knobs. Next slide. Here's our little gadget. These radios are pretty cool. If you hit the number 1 here, it'll send CQ. You hit the number 2, it'll send the exchange. If you're trying to do search and pounce, you just want to hammer your call sign out there, you hit number 3. If you need to get their class and station again, you hit number 4. And so you're able to actually use this little keypad. If you've got an older Yaesu radio and you bought one of these from Yaesu, they're about $120. This one cost us 17. Can I say you get what you pay for? They're not the same kind of quality product you get from Yaesu, but when we had to buy 5 of them and we use them once a year, who cares? So we can replace them a lot for that $15. So that keep in mind. Okay, and the Go to station has everything in their program just like that, except it's got the N7 Hotel Romeo call sign. Next slide. So this is a big thing every year, is what is the general schedule? We've been doing the same thing for lots of years, but we have collective memory issue from year to year. So let's go through this. Thursday night, I do a walkthrough and I have to deal with the porta potty people who want to place the porta potties Thursday night. And then I promptly wire tie them shut because interesting people have been known to live in the porta potties if you don't prevent them from doing that. So bring wire cutters if you have to go to the bathroom first thing Friday morning. We set up starting about 8:30 to 9 a.m. and this varies. It depends on how many warm bodies we get there when and how many Starbucks stops they had to make on the way. I'm usually there early because I'm got to unload stuff before we go over the storage units. But Friday we start set up and we go till we're done. We've been really fortunate the last several years is that we had most of the major setup all done by about 2 p.m. And then we did some testing from 2 to 3. But I'm home trying to recover usually by about 4:30 on Friday. For those of you who want ice cream, we have an ice cream social that gets started somewhere between 5:30 and 6 usually Friday evening. Our security team, I talked to Dave Mitchell, was on the call the other night. He says we've got it covered because Friday night, we have all that equipment and trailers and generators and everything out there. We have a security team that babysits that Friday night. Usually it's pretty boring. A couple years ago, Perry Flager, many of you know, a former county sheriff, had a rather entertaining evening with a bunch of young ladies who had a couple of cases of White Claw, which is a wine that you might know. And he eventually got them Uber home at some point in time. So they were enjoying the green space and were entertaining Perry a better part of the evening. So there's a reason we have security out there. Okay. Yeah. So we start operating 1800, which is 11 a.m. All day Saturday, we expect visitors and seminars. We may expect some visitors during setup. There are some key people, it may be some of our served agencies that we would love to have out there while we're setting up so they could actually see what we're doing. But officially visitors and seminars from noon to about 5 p.m. This club likes to eat, so we'll have a potluck. We will send out an email probably early this next week dividing the alphabet of your call sign so that not everybody brings cookies. Okay, so we'll have a sign based on your call signs. Sunday breakfast, last year Bern was making us some kind of special pancake, which was pretty cool. And we have a sort of a relaxing time then, and we operate up till about 11. After breakfast or even a little before breakfast, we don't officially take anything down, but there's some stuff we can get packed up ahead of time, like the party lights and some of the stuff that we have. So, you know, after breakfast, we start doing a little bit of cleanup. Takedown starts at 11 o'clock. We transport everything back to the storage units. Typically, we're cleaning out of the site by about 4:30 p.m. on Sunday, or usually a little bit before. So that's the overall schedule. Next slide. I want everyone to take a moment and read this line. A couple years ago, during COVID, we were out to Tim's house and we were running 3 stations or 4 stations. We only made 600 contacts. Now, for Tim and me to make only 600 contacts, you have to realize that things were bad. So anyway, 20 meters somewhere in the world, it's open 24 hours a day. Whether there's someone on the other end to hear you is another question. But basically, our field day site, because we're on the West Coast, starting about 1 a.m. in the morning, we can work all sorts of people out in the Pacific, Alaska, New Zealand, Australia. So even though that antenna doesn't have a rotor, I routinely have to rotate it on the string at night for a little while. 40 meters is pretty much 24 hours. It'll go short, it'll go long. 80 meters from about 5 p.m. to 4 a.m. 10 meters is pretty much from 10 a.m. till 8 p.m. Some days 10 meters has been open till 10 or 11 at night. The last couple weeks propagation hasn't been that great. So I'm hoping that the propagation gods take pity on us and open it up. And 15 meters is pretty much daytime, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. The total number of QSOs is our best measure of activity. We did a really great job last year of having CW, digital, and phone contacts. We had a pretty good mix. We could use a little more CW and a little more phone or a little more digital just to make out the mix a little better, but we did a good job of that last year. Next slide. Setting up. Can you turn a screwdriver or a nut driver? When you're putting stuff together at the club, we do not expect Hercules to have to undo what you did. We're only putting this up for 24 hours or 48 hours. You tighten things up till the lock washers compress and then you quit, please. We have safety boundaries. We have people watching out. We wear hard hats when we're putting stuff in the air. I don't normally drop stuff off towers, but I've been known to drop a nut or two and even a wrench. so the safety hats are appropriate. The security we've got filled. We're looking for more people to wander around helping as mentoring, both at regular operating stations or the go-to. I would like to see that go-to station occupied almost the full 24 hours if we can. There's no reason we can't do that with all our new members and stuff like that. The Aries and Iwarn, we're trying to get more people to come down. When we have VIPs, in other words, if we have the mayor of Vancouver, or we have a member of the county board, or we have someone from Cressa, or from Ridgefield, or from the center, one of those public officials show up, we're going to have people who want to walk around with them, help inform them of what's going on. And that creates all sorts of goodwill for us in the community. And it's amazing how much that pays dividends later on. And then take down, disassembling the antennas. I will say this, we're not in so much of a hurry that you are allowed to lose nuts and bolts, okay? I ended up having to replace a bunch of nuts and bolts on the 20-meter beam this year. Jason and I actually went out and put the beam together to make sure there was nothing wrong with it. And what we add, probably six or so bolts that got lost. Take your time when you're taking stuff down. For the coax cable, I actually have a coax winder that I made. It's homemade. It's a little rough on the hands, but it'll roll up all the coaxes for us in a nice size bundles. So we can use that. And when we clean up, we're a leave no trace. SCH is so good to us to let us use that green space that when we leave that green space, we better leave it just as clean as we found it or cleaner. So everybody needs to help clean up the area. And last year, we were short a pickup truck. It takes 3 full-size pickup trucks to take everything back to the storage unit. We need to have those 3 trucks to help do that. Okay, next slide. So, did you have a good time? That's the most important part of this. Did you accomplish your goals? Whether it's 200 contacts, making a single voice QSO, logging some CW, learning how to do FT8. Did you meet your goals? Please, yes. Was the fellowship cordial? I hope so. We do not talk politics. We do not talk religion. We treat everybody with respect. And anyone who forgets that will be asked to leave. Okay? We've had really, really good luck with everybody sticking to those rules, and it is appreciated. Thank you very much. Did we promote the club in a positive light? Okay. And that means sometimes when that person says, oh, this is a CB, that you just smile and say, well, not really. And you try to give them that answer that's appropriate, differentiating. And when we're all done, do we have confidence that this club could contribute meaningfully in a real emergency? And I better have that answer better be yes. So, yes, what, Floyd? So Floyd is talking about the accident at the air show, and a lot of people in this room may have worked an air show or two. I've worked quite a few over the years. There are ham radio operators who help with most air shows, and they responded appropriately to the accident there at the air show. It's an important aspect that we know what we can do and how to help in a time of emergency. So that's a very good point, Floyd. Last question. Okay, so we talked about what field day is about. We talked about the operating positions. We showed the basic radio and how to log. Talked about the schedule. Talked about the band expectations. Please be good to us in a couple weekends. We got all different ways to volunteer. If I have people standing around and watching, I guarantee I'll put you to work. But I would be totally happy to have that happen. Okay. And we focus on what you want to enjoy. Again, field day is a big thing. And before we go to the next slide, are there any questions that people have? Yes, go ahead. Yes, because we'll have a control operator in the immediate proximity who has, say, for example, you have a technician license. We'll have control operators in the immediate space that allow us for you to operate that so they can be there in the event that, s- yep. Yep. Right. As an amateur extra, you can operate in any legal space. Okay. It's strictly the control operator. Yep. So you can have a technician class licensee operating that radio in the extra class band if the extra class operator is there as the control operator. Yes. Yep. So there, and so that's the ARRL made a big thing about this a couple years ago because it used to be as long as you had one extra class operator at field day, everybody just basically operated extra class. And the ARRL said, no, that's not right. You have to have an extra class operator in the control position. For those of you who remember studying that, that means, to my unlegal way of thinking about it, I can hit the off button. So you can operate to whatever class that button, that person is standing there that can hit the button. Now, some of us might have arms that are 20 feet long. I don't know. We may be a little liberal with our interpretation of that. So, but we will follow the intent as best we can. What other questions? Those are very good questions. Yeah, Steve. Okay, so Steve's question is very important. Let's say that, for example, I decide to go operate field day with my family in Colorado. This is a perfect example, Steve. I'm in Colorado operating field day and we're using my call sign. So what Steve is here in Washington and he says, oh, there's Dave and he works me, but and it comes up WWA because that's what I'm in the country file as, but I give you Colorado because I'm out there working field day with my family. You put in Colorado, okay? So as long as you put in a valid section, you put it in there. And the way that ham radio operators move around these days, this is a very legitimate problem that you very well could get something auto-filled that doesn't match what they send. It's really important that you verify what they send when you put it in. We had someone in the CQ worldwide contest last year who maliciously and purposely typed in call signs wrong and posted them to the spotting networks. And so people who weren't paying attention would click on their assisted part of N1MN and they would log the call sign wrong. And so you would get not in log and you would get penalized. We think they did it maliciously. They know who it is and they are taking action against them, the last I heard. So, but to Steve's point, please verify the information, put in whatever you received, not necessarily what the computer stuck in there for you. With the exception, let's say that it showed, you know how I showed the screen and it showed all the previous times that somebody worked that station? If you worked them 3 times and it said Western New York and now they say New York, well, that you better clarify, it's probably Western New York, okay? So, other questions? Anyone out on Zoom have any questions, please? Yes, Vern. Okay, very important. Thank you for reminding me. the green space that we use to operate field day has some community gardens in it to the south of the field day space. Our agreement for using that green space is that we stay the heck out of their community gardens and we protect it. They may be coming and going to work on their community gardens while we're at field day. Please make the right of way available to them and ensure that we don't impede their access to their gardens. We've had very good relationship for the last several years. Back when I first joined the club, we had some people who were overly protective of not letting people go through, and there were some hard feelings. So, but the last several years, we've been really good citizens, and let's continue to do that. But a very good point, Vern. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah. So Paul's point, and it's a very important one, is about local news coverage. We've been fortunate enough to get some coverage in the Columbian and one of the other local newspapers. We have each year we have reached out to the broadcast stations to try to get some coverage. One year we did a really good job. I talked to one of the people at Channel 8, and one of their engineers said, "Oh yeah, the Tualatin Club is doing something." And so instead of covering the Clark County Club, they went and covered the Tualatin Club, which is okay because amateur radio got covered. So they're resistant, and it's so hard to get to the right person who can actually help us, but we try every year, and that's all we could do. So if any of you know that key individual in the news department at the broadcast stations that we can reach out to, we would take that information and try to follow through. John isn't here tonight, and he went through, to give John some real credit, we have a list of about 150 people from local governments that we invite each year to field day. John went through that list and verified that the list was accurate this year. Roughly 15 to 20% of those people change each year. So he went through and verified that list. So that was, again, about delegating and having lots of people do things. John has already been working on that and sent out a real nice press release. So I don't know how he made out on the broadcast stations, Paul, but I will be talking to him a little bit about that. It turns out you can't send it too early and you can't send it too late. There's a sweet spot of about anywhere from 10 to 6 days before the event. Otherwise, they don't want to talk to you. So it's trying to be in the right place at the right time to make that happen is a bit of a science. Any other questions? So we're going to see everybody at field day, right? All right. I think that's it. Oh, just a couple slides. This shows the Aries tent. I think that was Gary sitting there, N7HAR. And you can see all the go kits and the various things being demonstrated. Next slide. Oh, did this club like to eat? This is the potluck that night. Okay, Phil's waving at me. What do we got back there, Phil? Okay, we have some band plans and stuff back there. Okay. So this is the night of the potluck. Everybody, or actually, I think this is setup. People are eating lunch after setup. Next slide. This is what the monkey huts look like. For any of you who've been at field day when the wind blew up, the old pop-up tents, oh, they blew up too. And even the pop-ups we put up for the tables and the stuff like that, we have to stake down every year because even in mild wind, they get blown around. These monkey huts, back slide, they came from Burning Man. They use them at Burning Man because they have 50 to 60 mile an hour winds and dust every year. And they really hold up very well in the wind. We've used them now for, I think, 5 years. I can't remember when Greg made the first batch. But there what? It was before COVID, yeah. And when was it? 2019 is when he made them. And we have to pound in a total of 8 stakes to put them up, but they hold up every year. And I think in the entire time we've had them, we've had to repair one eyelet, and that's been it. So they've been super durable. And assuming that the people read the instructions, they're really easy to put up. That is, if you don't pound the stakes through a root. That is not a bad, good thing. Next slide. They what? Yeah, they do. And then when the wind blows against them, they just sort of roll a little bit and they hold up extremely well. This is our tower trailer. How many clubs own a 50-foot tower trailer? Not a lot. And so we every year we put that up, and that big white tube you see there holds the 4-element beam. So that's part of putting it up. We have new steel guidelines to go on it that Tom Barton got us a couple years ago, and some big stakes to put in to hold it up. There is a history of not having that tower guide, and it came close to him impaling a couple of our club members at field day one year. It actually blew over. So next slide. Again, Toby helping talk about some of the Aries stuff. And one more slide, I think. Little quiet time in the morning after setup. Gives you an idea. You can see the porta potties and everything, and trash cans. You can see our little party lights that are up there everywhere. They're LED now. So we actually run 3 strings of those, 6 radios, 2 coffee pots, all with one 2,000-watt generator. Pretty impressive. Next slide. This is sort of a nighttime view for those of us who drool at antennas. This is the 3-element beam, 10, 15, and 20, and this is the VHF stack from the other side. And you can see the 40-meter vertical and the 20-meter vertical in there. Next slide, that's it. Any final questions about field day? Thank you all for existing another Groundhog Day with Dave and field day. So hopefully I changed it up a little bit, not to be too boring. Thank you. All right, social opportunities. Thursday breakfast, the crowd was pretty thin. We only had 5 or 6 of us there this Thursday. You're always welcome Thursday morning. There's lots of talk, DX, radios, sometimes medical. It just depends. And so that's at the country table, the kitchen table, just across from the Furstenberg Center. And this Thursday is the May 16th isn't right. What's the actual date, Tim? What's the date? October? It's June 19th.
Should be Friday the 20th.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Friday the 20th at 1 p.m. at Billy Blues on Hazeldale. What's the matter? Okay. Yeah. So Billy Blues is pretty popular. Wendy and I have stopped there to eat 2 or 3 times, and the line's always been out the door, so we never stayed to eat there. Although I have heard from another number of people that if you like to have a little bit of an excitement, that's the place to be at about 11 or 12 o'clock at night. They do get a lot of county sheriff and calls there. So they have a pretty good, pretty lively group. Tim is saying it's fine at lunchtime. Okay. So again, Lewis Clark on the air through June, what is it? 15th. I got the right date. Okay. Tomorrow, June field day starts tomorrow at 11 o'clock. I will be active. Try the simplex frequencies, 146.52, 446, and 223.5. You want to try out your 200 megahertz radio? We will be there and listening. Last year on the January VHF contest, I had over 70 local QSOs on FM. So that's 146.52, all that. It was amazing how much activity. Brand new hams that had just gotten their license were on. A couple people drove up to government camp and they had a party in the parking lot up there. There were evidently 4 or 5 new hams all camped out in Government Park learning about the VHF contest. The VHF contest is really easy. Everybody repeat after me, CN85. Go ahead. That's all you got to know. You just give your grid score. And everybody in this room is in CN85. So you can just give your grid square and the call sign, and that counts as a QSO. And field day, of course, June 28th and 29th. So, James, you're up.